What's up, y'all? It's your girl J Renee with Prison Ride Radio. I hope that you're doing well. Today we're doing our installment on the other side of the game. Today we have a mother by the name of Liz that, is very vocal about her experiences of having a son that's incarcerated. So we're going to talk with her and learn more about what that looks like and hopefully give as much support as we can. So let's jump right in there. Good afternoon, Liz. How are you feeling?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. I definitely appreciate you for taking a little time with us to just talk about your experience that you have, as a mother who has her son, someone that I know you love dearly, on the other side of the wall, which is incarceration. So I
Yes.
definitely appreciate you for that. How I linked up with you is I saw an article that was written and it was just filled with so much honesty and transparency and things like that. So I definitely wanted to reach out and give you an opportunity for, to have the ability to speak so the listeners can hear, and become more familiar with that. But before we start, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm 72 years old, which is kind of shocking to me because I still feel like I live a life that feels like a teenager's. I live in New York City and I am a psychotherapist. And 6 years ago, at 6 a.m. on Valentine's Day, in fact, 11 federal agents stormed my apartment, ultimately looking for my son, who was not even in New York State. But by the end of the day, they had arrested him in New Orleans, where he was. And my life took a sharp right turn, and it has not recovered since.
Yeah.
I was stunned, confused, afraid. I didn't even know what to do. This was so new to me. And like everyone else, you just learn on the job as you need to. Lawyers, detectives, everything. It really shook me to my core. My training is as a social worker, and therefore, whenever I'm trying to understand something, I always like to see how other people are doing. And after I was able to catch my breath a little bit, I began to look into how are other mothers coping with this. And it turns out that, well, as a start, there are many of us.
Yeah.
1 out of 4 women loves an incarcerated person.
Wow.
Not all those people are mothers, of course, and not all mothers are involved, but there are probably about 1 million of us at least, because there are about 2 million incarcerated people in this country at this time. But there was nearly nothing written about mothers.
Right.
There's a lot written on incarcerated people as parents and what it's like for kids to have a parent who's in prison, but almost nothing about mothers. And it's a glaring absence because it turns out that mothers are doing the lion's share of the work of caring for these incarcerated men, even when the men are married themselves and have their own children. The relationship with one's mother tends to be one of the most stable relationships in anybody's life. So 94% of all incarcerated people are men, and that's why I tend to focus on mothers of incarcerated sons. But we are providing money for commissary and phone calls and care packages. We are our sons' counselors, keeping them sane and keeping their spirits up. We are their legal liaisons. And I am also, I feel like my son's personal Google account. He does not have access to a computer. And this is a nice thing. He's writing a book.
Okay.
And so he can't research anything. And so I am called can you look up something and send me some written stuff about this topic and that topic? Or sometimes I get a letter that has 6 topics to send them. So this is a part-time job for me, taking care of him. Between the calls, the money, sending his messages to his friends and family, it's very time-consuming. And this work of mothers is primarily invisible to others, and it comes at a cost to us.
Yeah.
So the little research that's out there does show us that the longer our sons are in prison, the more likely we are to suffer from some serious physical medical problems, not just the psychological ones, which would be expected. But I lead 2 support groups for mothers, and I've been doing my own research and interviewing many mothers, and I see how people have developed high blood pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, all kinds of kidney disease, all kinds of problems. One woman told me she felt so changed by what happened that she changed her name. The old name no longer fit her.
Wow. Wow. That's really deep. All the things that you said, especially with the, statistical data and just how it just all links together scientifically, is definitely a toll, you know. Um Man, I often, sometimes I come across situations and it's mothers and they just seem so at their wits' end and overworked and just, you know what I mean? I just be wanting to reach out and give her a hug. A mother's job is never done. For real. A mother's job is never done. Your son, you could be 91. If your son is around or even your daughter, but your kids, period, ma, that mom hat
Even
is
when they're
always,
grown.
yeah, that mom hat stays on. I definitely commend the mothers out there that's holding it down. And it is a lot more than I think people realize. So I appreciate the
But
numbers
I
you
think
brought.
part of the reason that people don't realize it is that there's very little research on this topic, as I've said.
Mm.
But there is a tendency for mothers to keep the information to themselves. So aside from the time consumingness and how expensive it is to have a son in prison and the health risks of having a son in prison, there's also the isolation. Because if mothers, don't feel like they can tell people where their son is and what's going on, then they can't get the support that they need. And so I've interviewed many mothers and asked them, who knows where your son is? What do you do when people say, oh, how many kids do you have? Oh, you have a son. Where is he?
Right.
And many people, because of shame, and I think that's the worst part here, don't want to say anything because some will say he's with the government, he's in the army,
right.
He's in Connecticut,
he's offshore.
Do anything not to answer.
Yeah.
And while that might protect the mother from rejection or judgment, it also, the silence leaves her alone and isolated.
Yeah.
So I have a group, as I said, I met with one of my groups last night, and 3 of the mothers in the group have their sons currently in what my son calls the shoe, and some people call the hole, like they're in solitary and they're removed from their units. And it also means they can't make phone calls or have visits. And so these mothers I don't know what happened. I don't know why he's in the shoe. I can't speak to him. I'm afraid. I miss him.
Yeah.
Did he get hurt? What happened? But they have nobody to turn to for support because, well, except this one group that I lead, but that's not enough for most of us. We need more than one person or more than a group that meets now and then to get support, especially when things are tough like that.
Yeah.
But in this culture, I think mothers they're unnatural or unachievable expectations of mothers. We are expected to, have jobs, provide for them, be available when they need us, teach them right and wrong, feed them, help them with their homework, et cetera, et cetera. And I know every mother has done her absolute best with what she has available to her. But I see that when a son is in prison, people begin to wonder, how was he raised? How did that happen?
Yeah.
And it's the fear of that, of being judged, that keeps mothers silent. And let me also add, and it's true about me too, I immediately began to think about, what did I do?
Right.
Where did I zig when I should have zagged? Did I take my eye off the ball? How did I miss that?
Right.
Wait, he was doing drugs? How come I didn't know that? Yes, he didn't live at home, but how did I not know that? Should I have known that? Was I supposed to know that? If I was a better mother, would he not have been doing any drugs? So we are consumed with self-criticism ourselves, and therefore we project that judgment onto others. And plenty of people are judgmental.
Yeah.
I mean, I see in my practice as a psychotherapist that when people try to understand, let's say, why their husband, does those things he does that are so annoying, it often gets back to his mother.
Mm.
Well, I met his mother. You don't know how he was raised. Like, we all blame mothers. And then when our sons make terrible and sometimes tragic choices, whether we knew they were doing it or not, it doesn't mean the mothers approve, but it fills us with shame because we feel like we should have known and we should have been able to prevent it or stop it.
Yeah. Wow. That's really deep. These are the things I said that people don't think about. So I'm overjoyed at the fact that you're here now and we can bring these into light into a real way. Like you said, it's not something studied and often talked about. So I think these conversations are, really important. Can you tell us about, how can the general public, mothers that are looking for support, how can they link in with the groups that you speak about?
Well, I am a big fan of several of the Facebook groups.
Okay.
And say what you will about Facebook, but the best support groups are always on Facebook. So, Mothers of Incarcerated Sons is one of my favorites. I don't know if that's where you saw my article or not, but
yes,
if you look up there, and there, I have relied on them more than my friends and family many times. For example, I wouldn't even call it a fight. I just thought my son was being a total brat to me.
Right.
And I work too hard for him to be treated like that. And at some point, I remember I was standing in Trader Joe's and I said, I am hanging up. And I hung up the phone. And then I was racked with guilt.
Yeah.
We are not two equal people having a disagreement. He's locked up and I'm free. So I couldn't even call him back because, as you know, I just have to wait for him to call me. And the rules are he can't make a second phone call for at least half an hour after the first one.
Yeah.
And I tried to talk to some of my friends, and I just felt like they didn't understand. They didn't understand the complicated feeling of still mad at him.
Yeah.
But also guilty because we're not equals. And I posted on one of these Facebook groups, and mothers wrote and said, oh yeah, been there. Yeah, I love him to pieces, and sometimes I'm also angry with him.
Right.
And when they said it, I could handle it that much better. I believed someone else who had been through it. And they were like, yeah, it happens sometimes. Don't worry. He'll call you back.
Right.
And of course he did.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he didn't apologize or anything, but
we work on that part.
I then had to explain to him, because maybe this is shocking, but he didn't really take in that he destroyed my life too.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what he did to his. But I had to say, this isn't just about you. This happened to me now also. And it's about my everyday. It's not like a little background thing. It's right. Front and center for me at all times. And it's been 6 years already that this is front and center. It has changed who I am. And I think that was hard for him to want to take in, because he can feel any sort of guilt he does about, or regret or remorse, or whatever the right word would be, about what he's done to himself. But I think it was almost too much for him to have to take in that he also really, I used to say ruined my life, but I'm hesitating now because I would not say my life is ruined. It's different. It's changed. And in some ways, I think I'm a better person because of it. But I wouldn't wish this transformation on anybody.
Yeah, it's definitely a path, a path that many don't choose. It just becomes a part of them. I appreciate everything that you share with us. I think that it's been some great insight into it. And I definitely hope that we can have more conversations in the future about this type of thing. Because there are women that need more support.
I'm here to help in any way I can.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much, Liz. I want to give you an opportunity to address the listeners. You can drop some gems, some knowledge, some know-how, whatever you'd like to add. Please, the floor is yours.
This is what I want to say. I'm really sorry your sons are incarcerated. It's not your fault. You were not perfect parents. I know that. Without even meeting you all, I know that. But it's still not your fault. And to do the long haul work of caring for your sons now, it's a long haul thing. It's not a short sprint. It's a marathon, as they say. So you need to take care of yourself. And that means eating well, sleeping enough, and to the extent you can, find support. Look into the Facebook groups. Many faith groups offer support groups for prisoners. And if you find a criminal justice organization or an organization that serves prisoners and doesn't yet offer a particular special support group for women, for mothers is what I really mean, encourage them to. Because part of being invisible means that there aren't services for us. And so we have to speak up. And if you need me to speak up for you someplace, you just find me online, you call me, I will do what I can for any of you. And I wish you the best, and I wish your sons the best.